I really don't think I need to roll through the ground rules again. Everyone that's on has been on before. So just remember to mute yourself when you're not speaking and identify yourself when you do speak. So first thing on the agenda is the approval of the June minutes. Anyone have any comments, corrections?
One comment, Tony Bogner was at the meeting. We recommended him as an alternate. I think we should probably list him as a visitor. This is Andy.
Oh, he's not listed as a visitor?
Correct.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Me too.
Anything else?
This is Tim.
All right,
I have nothing.
All right, thank you. So if we're all in agreement to add Tony's name to the registered visitors list, someone make a motion to accept that change and accept the minutes.
I motion we accept the minutes with the addition of Tony's name.
Second that. This is Tim.
Tim, you made the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I guess that's motion passes. Hey, I never did a roll call. Who do we have from the Planning Commission? I'll start with Alex. You're here.
Present.
Andy.
Present.
Tim.
Present.
John. I didn't think I saw John swear.
I thought I saw him pop up a minute ago.
Okay.
His name's listed there.
It is. Oh, there he is. John, unmute yourself. Anyway, hey, Tony, are you with us tonight?
Yes, present.
All right, Tony. Well, welcome aboard, Tony.
Yes, thanks.
Yep. John, you gonna chime in? All right. Well, we'll move forward and see if you can get in on things here. Next on the agenda is Fresco. So if you guys want to take the mic.
Well, I could give you an update. This is Steve. I think Jeff Hammond is on the call. But if you recall, a few months back, you recommended preliminary final approval of the land development plan. And they have made some revisions to the plan, which included a building footprint change and a parking lot change to allow another loading area to the plastics building. So when we talked about it, we decided it should come back through the Planning Commission so you could review these changes and make sure you're still comfortable with the plan before it goes on to the Board of Supervisors. It looks like we have Scott on the call now too. They're Scott Patursky, their engineer.
Good evening.
Okay. Hi, Scott. Do you want to take the floor?
Yeah, you ready for me?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. So just to bring everybody up to speed, as you remember, we were before the Planning Commission a couple months ago and received a recommendation of approval for the Fresco facility. Since that time, there's been 2 plan changes that kind of created a little bit of a ripple effect in the plan submission that I would like to just quickly describe what those are to you. And when we discussed those with the township staff, they said that we did need to go back before the Planning Commission to update the recommendation that was previously granted. So you can see the plan. It might be good whoever's running the plan there. If you don't mind switching to the next plan sheet, it should have that's a good one to look at. And so what I'd like to do is just give you a very brief update as to what the changes were. I will say at the outset, I do believe that the changes are, the plan is substantively the same as what was approved previously, but there are a couple changes that I wanted to just highlight quickly. What happened is we added, and I don't have the ability to point with this, but on the northern, well, that's not the northern, but we're going to call the upper portion of the plan, there's a bump out of the building that spans between the existing plastics department and the plastics expansion. I don't know if it's possible for someone to point at that, but it's a little rectangle of dark shaded area on the upper portion of yep, that's it right there. Whoever's pointing there, that's it. What that is used for, it's going to be used for hand trucks to go back and forth between the two plastics departments. There's equipment on either side, and there's going to be hand trucks running back and forth there. The other thing that was introduced with that submission, or with that addition, is the ability to access very infrequent tractor trailers, which would be on the left side of that little bump out. If someone could be so kind as to point that out, since I don't think I have the ability to point with this. On the left side, right, a little bit further, right there. You just passed it. About 4 times a year, there may be occasions where new equipment has to arrive at the facility. So there's a loading dock basically provided there as well to service those trucks. The other portion of the building footprint that has changed is over on the bottom left corner of the plastics expansion. There's a little rectangle of pavement there, right by the parking lot between the rear access road and the plastics expansion. There's a small box, additional building footprint, and that is it's like a plastic. Let's see, it's like a hot oil. I'm not exactly. Jeff could answer more about what the process is, but that was something they needed for their processes. It was like a hot oil facility, and the total square footage between those two expansions is 2,460 additional square feet. There was the loss of 5 parking spaces as a result of that, and we made some minor changes to the parking layout just to accommodate, for example, the tractor trailers, to make sure that they weren't running over light poles and things like that. We had to increase radii here and there. We had to come up with a plan for deliveries of this equipment, this infrequent delivery, and again, lose the parking spaces. So that, and in a very broad terms, that was the change. And so just stop me if anybody has a question. I'm just going to keep going otherwise. Specifically what that amounts to on the plan, I already mentioned as far as parking, there was a net loss of 5 spaces. The calculations we submitted back in the April submission documents indicated that we had about 14 spaces or so to spare. We did calculations to show the capacity of the required parking. And so with a loss of 5, with the anticipated usage of the facility, there's still plenty of parking to serve not just the future demand when the reserve parking is in place, but the current demand when these facilities are operational. So there's no problem with parking as far as we're concerned, and we have the calculations that we can update to document that, and we'll certainly can comply with that comment. The next thing is stormwater. There was the drainage area for these 2 small bump outs, all drains to that existing detention facility in the upper left corner of the plan. And so there is a minor, actually it was close to a net zero gain in impervious, but there was a very small increase in impervious surfaces. But we revised the stormwater calculations and the design and the thresholds we were trying to meet had enough fat in them to accommodate that. So we revised the stormwater calculations and resubmitted signed and sealed copies of the report, which indicate that the stormwater design still works, long story short. And moving down the line here, another kind of, this is the ripple effect, I guess, is what I'm talking about here. You can see where the, just to the above, or just above where the hand truck expansion is that connects the two plastics departments, that's where the existing silos are located. And previously we were expecting about a 13-foot setback from the existing building to the silo. But with the addition of this additional bump out, we've got a little bit less than a foot of setback now. So we realize that will require zoning relief. We have retained a land development attorney that will be preparing an application for that silo setback, and we're planning to make an application through the township zoning hearing board, or I guess to the zoning officer rather, by the end of this week. So, we can't speak for the zoning hearing board. We feel we've got a good, strong case for. We'd like to identify any pending approval of that. We would request that would be considered just a condition of any recommendation that we may consider tonight, if in fact you're so inclined. Almost done here.
Real quick before you move on, Alex Ulmer, question: how constructible is that with just a foot between the existing silos and the face of the new wall?
That's a good question. It's certainly not ideal. It's going to have something that the site contractor is going to have to propose and weigh out. But usually it's not so much it can be done. It's just how much money will it cost to be done. So they're going to have to be very careful. That's a very good point. But we feel it is constructible. It's just going to have to be treated with great respect during the design. It is an isolated area. There's two silos that it's going to come close to. So they'll have to be very careful around that area. But we don't feel that it's a showstopper or anything that's not constructible. It's just going to have to be taken extreme caution in building it. That will be factored into the site contractor's price, or the general contractor rather. That will all be factored into his price, and when he goes to build that.
All righty.
Last thing I would like to just mention as far as the ripple effect is concerned, and then open up to any further questions. But I touched on it slightly with the delivery truck access, but just to highlight it, trucks right now, as you know, there's a one-way loop road from State Road. They come in and they go in a counterclockwise direction all the way around the site, and then back out, and they converge together again and go back out to State Road. Well, in this case, we ideally wanted to maintain that one-way flow, but to get a truck in there in the dock, it was just difficult. So we do propose, for the very infrequent use, to reverse the direction of the driveway with flaggers manually, the very few times it needs to happen a year. And that way we don't have to keep turning the truck 180 degrees around. And destroy, parking fields and run over light poles and things like that. So we've designed this to serve a WB67, which is basically an interstate tractor trailer, if you're not familiar with the nomenclature. And it works. It requires some coordination, but we submitted to the township engineer turning templates that show that the truck access to this loading dock facility does work. So as far as that's the overview of the plan, that's the ripple effect, and what we basically updated the plans. We believe it's minor. It's substantively the same plan as you saw before with these other changes. If you'd like, I'd be happy to go through comment by comment, but in my opinion, the comments didn't really say a whole lot different than what I just described. But whatever your pleasure is, I'd be happy to do.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I looked like I was freezing up here. Let's start with the parking. The calculations you're saying you have plenty of fat to drop five spaces and still be within regulation.
Correct.
I did see that you're going to have to go through parking spaces with delivery to this new loading dock.
Yes.
Is that what I'm seeing?
Yeah, and that would be the spaces in question there are the ones that are right up against the plastics expansion. I forget how many there are. There's I could pull it up here, but it's about maybe 9 spaces, I believe, would have to be temporarily vacated. And these are all things. This is all employee parking. So according to Fresco, they would expect about 4 deliveries per year that would require those spaces to be vacated. So for the 4 deliveries per year, the 9 spaces that are closest to the plastics building that kind of run left and right on the plan, if you can see them there, those would need to be temporarily vacated just for as the truck swings through there and backs into the loading dock. And then they could the people could be in their cars with the engines idling. When the truck comes in, they could go and reoccupy those spaces. So for 4 times a year, we didn't feel that was an operational problem.
Now, is this the only loading dock, or are there more loading docks on this property?
There are. This is actually loading dock is probably not it is a loading. It's designed as a loading dock, and it's for the delivery of equipment. It's the
Right.
plastics equipment, but the main loading docks for the property are to the bottom of the page, which we're proposing to expand. If it's possible to scroll down a little bit on that plan that's up now, you can see there's 3 existing loading docks, and our plan proposes to add 3 additional dock loading spaces right at the bottom of the page here. And so it's not a loading dock for the normal loading and unloading of products or the shipment of the product that they're producing. It's really just for the occasional equipment delivery, but it is being designed as a loading dock, just so the transfer of equipment can go smoothly.
And would that be the only time that you would be reversing the direction that you're in and out? That would be the only time you'd be going in a clockwise direction coming in?
Yes, that's correct. Only those 4 times a year for
Right.
one delivery, 4 times a year. That's it.
Anybody else have any questions about the parking and trucking direction?
This is Andy. Just speaking as someone in operations who many times has had to ask folks to go move their cars to accommodate a delivery or to make a shipment, and also had to pay for damage when the truck driver ends up hitting people's cars. I'm generally not in favor of it. That's just my personal opinion. Another comment with that, Scott, is that a 48 or a 52 foot trailer that you reference the size?
It would be a 53-foot trailer, and that would be the AASHTO design vehicle. It's the biggest, the most restrictive tractor trailer we can design for.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
This is Alex again. So when you reverse direction, you would have flaggers at every one of the parking lot entrances to make sure no one was coming out and headed the wrong way?
Right. If someone could please scroll up on the plan a little bit to show that access way. Just scroll up a little bit upwards. What I believe would be required there is to have one flagger, and it where the paved the shading on the one-way access way starts, where there's a note that says proposed manage release concept right there where the hand is on the screen. Right at that location, you'd have one flagger, a guy could be literally just someone with a cell phone, two employees on a cell phone, and another one out at the front of the facility, holding traffic back for that temporary time, basically right around where the visitor parking area is, which would be up to the right in front of the kind of the upper right corner of the facility, where that you keep going a little bit more right there. Another flagger there, so that stop traffic there temporarily. Or, I'm sorry, it'd actually have to be further back, someplace where the people would have room to stack. So that would be at the point of divergence, which is a little bit further to the right on the plan. Yeah, right there where it says Luigi Golgio Drive, right at the word Luigi, right at that point, the traffic could be stopped temporarily only while the truck is egressing. So, there might be about 120 seconds for the truck to get from the dock back out. So it's, any traffic that would come in during that time would have to temporarily be stockpiled or queued up prior to there. There looks like there's room, probably about 5 or 6 cars, as long as it doesn't happen during a shift change, which it would have to be planned accordingly. I don't think there would be any impact to the roadway. It would just be something that'd have to work around.
This is Steve. Might be some confusion on how you describe the truck coming in and leaving, but it's not the whole loop road that gets reversed, correct? The truck will still come in the normal path, proceed to the rear of the building, and then right at that parking lot right before the plastics building, that's where it loops around and then backs into the loading dock, correct?
Correct, yes.
And then just leaving, the truck would then have to leave straight out the parking areas and then go reverse on that portion of the entrance road back out to the State Road.
Right, exactly. So
the other parking areas, the other loading dock, the main loading dock for the facility, that's not impacted by this change. It's just the area on that upper side of the plastics building.
Right. Yeah, thank you for that clarification. It would be very isolated, and very temporary.
Do you have any idea of that? Is that something they usually schedule for at night or on a second shift when there isn't as many people there? I didn't know what the normal procedures were.
If Jeff is on the call, he might be better to answer that question.
We could schedule that. We could do that. Typically, it might come in the morning. We could actually even probably have it scheduled for a weekend, like a Saturday delivery or something like that. We don't expect to see a whole lot of this. It'll just be as, we populate this area with new equipment, maybe 3 or 4 times a year, something like that. Typically it would take maybe, half hour or something once the truck pulls in to get the equipment offloaded into the building, and the truck could be on its way.
And the entrance wouldn't have to be reversed for a half hour. It's only for about 120 seconds while the truck leaves. So while the truck is parked and unloading the equipment, everything can be in normal operation. It's just when it's time to leave, that's when the flagger's got to get out there and hold it up for just that time for the truck to pull out, pull around, and get to that point of divergence to the road right by the word Luigi.
Yeah.
Right
there. I don't think it's the ideal situation, but I also don't think it's going to be a super dangerous situation. I mean, I don't know what anybody else is thinking about this, but I think I'd be willing to recommend it.
This is Tim. For the limited amount of times it's going to be done in the course of a year, I don't reason to hold it up for that.
Any other comments?
Alex, I have none.
It's John, I have none.
This is Andy. No, I mean, if they're okay with it, I'm okay with it. I would just caution, every time that you have to do it, it's your business. So it's gonna take an hour, for these 9 folks and over a couple years. But if Fresco is okay with it, I'm okay with it, so long as it's done safely.
Okay. So, are there any other major details that we need to button up? I know most of this. I mean, this is the only change, and really the things we needed to talk about. Steve, is there anything else that's jumping out that we need to?
I'm just I'm just looking through the letter now. Just for clarifications, there was discussion about the building height before, and that's been resolved with the zoning officer. So that's no longer an issue. That was number one. In number two, I identified the waivers that you recommended for the last meeting. So I don't think any of those waivers are impacted by this issue. The parking calculations, that's number three. We've been through that. The parking changes, those couple spaces that they had as excess spaces anyway, that they're losing at the rear of the building. They also clarified the material they're using for that temporary parking area that's going to be up in the front of the site. It seems like a suitable material. Maintenance is always the issue, and again, that's, you know, to their employees, they have to maintain it properly for their own employees. And I think since the last time, Scott, you could correct me if I'm wrong, you've been in discussions with Telford Borough Authority. You know what you're doing for an additional EDU and the sewer connections for the building. Is that correct?
Yeah, we did receive a review letter, and we're going to work through those comments and keep working with them.
That's it. Everything else is just carry over. And there's a handful of engineering drafting detail items on they're really not even drafting detail items. They're cost estimate items on number 9.
But we have no issues with those. Comment number 9, we can comply with all that.
Yeah. So with that said, yeah, I agree with you, Chris. There's really no other significant issues with the plan, and they've gone a long way to clean up the plans from the last time.
Okay. So are we comfortable to give a preliminary final on the updated plan, or revised plan, I should say?
Well, I think it would be, this is Tim, it would be conditional final, right, on the zoning hearing board?
Yes.
Yeah, and any outside.
I mean, if everybody's, is that the motion?
Yeah, I sounds like a good motion if you want to make that.
So conditional preliminary final on the zoning hearing board outcome for Fresco
And the engineering letter.
and the engineering letter.
Okay. Here you a second.
It's John, I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
I'm sorry, opposed? Okay, motion carries. So
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
good luck with the zoning hearing board.
Okay.
Good luck, guys.
Have a great night. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Have a good night. Okay, so moving on, next on the agenda is Butter Creek Builders, Tim Snyder.
How you guys doing tonight?
Good, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. And I want to say I appreciate you guys taking this on tonight. I know I got it in last minute, well, way past last minute, and I appreciate you even discussing this. We're trying to keep it moving. But I definitely want the input. Obviously, I'm trying to make everything work. I'm here because Ken is on vacation, so I apologize. I haven't done this before, so might be some difficulties, might not. I do obviously know the property as well as anybody. I guess do you want me to just go into what we made, the changes we made, or how do you want me to go with this?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and let us know what you're doing here? I'm having trouble depicting.
Yeah, it's not a real clear picture. It probably should have been highlighted. The road should have been highlighted a little different. A couple of the issues that I found or that I heard at last meeting, obviously length of cul-de-sac. So to help to address that a little bit, we did reduce another 150 feet or so off the length of the cul-de-sac. Unfortunately, by doing that, we had to relay the whole thing out. So instead of 2 large lots, which were both, 12 or 14 acres, we now have 1 large lot in the back of the property. and we shifted everything forward, and then cut that one other large lot down into to 3 lots. The other thing we did by trying to shorten the road was we lessened the size of each, made each lot a little bit smaller, trying to get as close as we can to conformance. I know, it's very tough to get conformance with the fact that we got at least 450 feet or so just to get into the property. So road length was that. The emergency access was another, well, probably the biggest issue, and I understand that Steve kind of explained the reasoning today to me in a conversation, and I appreciate that. Unfortunately, with this property, it's a tough topography. It's heavily wooded. We got the creek on the one end going out to Butter Creek, and trying to cross that as an emergency access. If we're needing that emergency access during a heavy rainstorm, we could see that possibly flooding out down there, as Butter Creek has had problems. And I'm sure other issues could come up. Going all the way out to Camp Rockhill Road, as we said originally, we're trying to keep this thing as tight as we can and as least an impact on this property and in the wooded areas as possible. That remains our goal. And by moving that road making the road another 150 feet less, we now are impacting probably less than 300 feet of forested area. So from the original design that was originally approved, we were well over 1,900 feet of going through the forest with this road. Again, we have no cut and fills. Almost no. There's one little area where that was filled for my parking area that would have to be cut a little bit. The other thing about this road, about 500 feet is already in driveway, 500 to 600 feet is already in driveway or parking area. So we're even disturbing even less of the natural resources in the township. As far as the emergency access, the idea that Ken and I came up with the night after the meeting, we talked, and the thought was to do, I guess you call it a boulevard road. We come in as a traditional road to about the first 450 feet, and then we split to a boulevard with a couple cut-throughs we placed all along. What I felt that did, and we felt that did, was it gave us 2 roads, 2 lanes that can be used as a 2-lane road in an emergency. Each lane is wide enough to travel traffic both directions. 14, I know Butter Creek is not the example you like, but that's about 14 feet wide, some areas less. So in an emergency, that gets us a lane for traffic. And it also, as I was talking to Steve today, it gives the fire and emergency services people a complete lane of their own. So in other words, when you have the roads together, the lanes together, you got impact from traffic going one side or the other. Their equipment can spill over into the other lane. This gives them a lot more room for equipment and a lot more privacy in the sense of no impact from somebody coming down or a homeowner leaving their property. The other thing, I believe, the other benefit, and after the conversation, Steve, with you this afternoon, I did call John at the fire chief, and he did not. I left him a message. I didn't hear back from him, so I was going to sit down with him and go over this thing. One of his biggest concerns when we met and when we talked before was that the fire pond was too far away. By doing this, designing it this way, I believe, and I have to thoroughly lay it out. This is just what I'm seeing, and I've looked at this a lot. For the most part, that fire pond will be no further than 200 to 300 feet away from the individual driveway of the home that's on fire or whatever. So that pulls out a lot closer to their location. And again, it will be in a lane of the road that is completely independent, divided by that grass in the middle, a 20-foot strip. The other thing that we liked about the road was the fact that it has that in the middle, the divided lane. We were talking about, let me go back a little bit, talking to Steve a long time ago. He had said he wasn't sure the township's not thrilled about taking any more roads on and having any more work. And I understand that. So I had talked to my attorney and my engineer, and we kind of thought about keeping the road private. And we'd also like to know what the township's thoughts are on that. So by keeping it private, it will give me more, or whoever is plowing, obviously I will be doing it in the beginning, but whoever takes over the plowing, it will give more area for snow storage. You won't necessarily have to push everything to the outside, and in that shoulder, you can actually stuff a lot of the snow to the inside, which is also where the storm or the storm sewers are going to be. So I think it makes a nice appearance. I've always liked those when I've gone to visit any other states where I've had these kind of, this kind of thing. We've never seen them much around here. And I believe, and as far as the strip up top, 30 or 28 feet, that it doesn't meet requirements. If that was left as a, if this is a private road and that's put under a homeowners association, then that land is part of the homeowners association. And the association obviously take up possession of and that area. So let me stop there. And is there any questions or thoughts?
Yeah, this is Chris. I'll start. What's the proposed cartway width for the?
We're doing both lanes are 14 feet, so 28 feet, which is what we had talked about the other meeting, I believe. So you have two 14-foot lanes.
Right. And you're proposing a center grass strip between?
Yes. Yes, it'll be a swale of sorts, and then I'll have our drainage in there. And the other thing I like about it is we slope the road water towards that and not out towards property owners. And I think it can confine it better and control it, I believe anyways, but I'm no expert. And this is also coming from Ken. I'm just talking because I'm talking, saying I believe. We have talked about it, and it seems to be a nice way of combining, controlling the stormwater from the road and keeping it on the road or on site, that site.
Wasn't the cartway 28 feet on the last plan? Or that's what we were looking for?
That's what you were looking for. We had talked about going down to 24, and you said, the board, you would rather have 20, the board would rather have 28. So we went 28.
I'm not exactly sure how this is. I mean, you're shortening the length of it, but I'm not following how having the same cartway width with the center is going to make it any better for emergency.
Well, they would have one whole lane as opposed to that's truly separated. And then the other lane could be used for traffic for homeowners or for the tankers, the loops going between. The radius is okay. We'll make a tanker truck to be able to go around there. So everything will stay independent of the fire, rescue, or police or whatever they'll be totally independent from anything else. And technically, and in reality, again, it's not ideal and it's not every day, but in an emergency, that one lane, that other lane can be used as an extra, as a two direction road. And then what I talked to Steve about, he said, I don't know how that benefits, because you gotta, they can block it off at the road. Well, there's no houses before 500 feet really. So before that splits, where that splits, realistically, I have to talk with the fire, the fire chief, and see. What I said to Steve is that one lane should remain open all the time. If we're having this as an emergency exit, then they would have, the emergency services would have the one whole lane, and then the traffic would move. So in other words, they would stop it, which kind of would be easier in some senses in my mind, because they have less to control. They have less to stop. They're just stopping one lane. They're not stopping the whole road. So they don't have to bother with people coming in and out. They don't have to bother as much. And nobody really can bother them because they're 20 feet away and there's a grass strip in between.
This is Alex. I'm just trying to understand how you have both incoming and outgoing traffic in the non-emergency lane during an emergency. Like, you're gonna have people wanting to get out and people coming in, but they've only got a 14-foot cartway, right?
Yes, 14-foot cartway, which is, Camp Rockhill Road is 16 feet wide at best. Some areas, where I widened, it's 18. Butter Creek is under 14 feet wide, 14 in a lot of areas. So that's used every day as a 2-lane road. These are both used as 2-lane roads. I'm not bashing or saying anything negative. I'm just saying all we're trying to do is get that emergency, the time of an emergency that you're talking, that we're all worried about, covered. And if that lane can be used, one lane can be used both directions, doesn't that take care of that? Again, only in an emergency.
Tim, this is Chris again. My computer dropped out for a little bit while you were giving your presentation. Did you have any conversation with the fire chiefs or fire marshal?
I had said to Steve, I talked to Steve today, just about 4:30, I think it was, and he had mentioned that, and I put a call into John, the fire chief, but I didn't get a response. So I left him a message. So I spent about an hour and a half. When he came out here to look last time, we spent about an hour and a half, and he went over his main issues. And we've talked about this, and not the divided road, but he had said that he's open to any idea that makes everything work for him. So, and that's all. That's obviously I have to sit down and talk to him about this.
Yeah, I mean, they might want more than that 14 feet. They would probably desire not having that center area, so they could utilize more space.
Yeah, this is Steve. Obviously, the key to this is how the fire operations would want to handle a situation on this road, and we need to get their input, whether this is right off the bat, whether it's viable for them to operate in this fashion or not. And then we could deal, we still have all the other issues of ownership and maintenance and long-term issues, but we really need to know if the fire company could operate in this manner, the way it's laid out.
Like, I guess the answer to that again is there's several roads in West Rockhill and many townships that are 14 foot, or some are even narrower, and they can operate on those roads. We're not, as I said to Steve earlier today, we're not in a townhouse development where we got 25-foot driveways and no room. These are at least 50 feet back, and obviously some of the houses are a lot further than that. So some of the fire traffic fire truck traffic is certainly going to be on the driveways and the properties themselves. And that's not to say the 14 feet is all they have. You still have the shoulder of the road. We still have the grass areas. If there's something major, certainly the ponds could be put off to the grass. With the road sloping toward the inside to get the drainage away, in that way, the outside shoulders should stay a lot solider and should need certainly less swale to control the water that's coming down from the other areas. So that was the other thought about this. It does give a little more room.
Tim, this is Alex Holmer again. You said that center grass strip would be 20 feet wide?
Well, you got 28-foot cart width. We have 52-foot right of way. The cart width is going to be 2 feet in from each end. So, yeah, I think that puts us at 20 feet wide.
Is there something magical about that? I mean, could we make that 10 feet and add the rest to the cartways?
Well, now you got a 38-foot wide road for 12 houses. I guess that's the only, I guess the question is, I mean, obviously the whole 52 feet could be paved if that's, and I'm not being smart, don't get me wrong in any way, shape, or form. We're looking at 12 houses. 38 feet, that's explained is what, 20 or 18? 19 feet, I'm sorry.
19.
Wide, that's, I mean, Camp Rockhill Road is not even, it's not even 19 feet wide.
Did we talk about parking along this road last time?
I did. It was covered, but I think it was supposed to, since the houses have plenty of parking, there would be some chance for overflow if need be.
Yeah, I don't remember if this was before or after discussions with the slosher plan, but just for comparison on the slosher plan, I believe that was a 28-foot wide road with curbing and parking on one side. And actually, we had sidewalk on one side also to get the kids out.
That's
This
what
is
I
Chris.
thought.
Yeah, we brought that up at your last presentation to stay consistent with what we had suggested on the Schlosser project, wrapping the bulb and sidewalk and one side of the cul-de-sac lane and sidewalk with parking on the sidewalk side.
Okay. I don't remember. I obviously missed that part.
Yeah, some issues with curbing and whatnot might be subject to whether or not it ultimately is a private road, but the township would have to be comfortable with the private road concept because we've, as I told Tim earlier today, that there was a policy a while back started that we didn't want to go the private road route for most projects. I think the only thing we've done in the recent past has been Rosecliff, which was the age-restricted community. But there's, I mean, it's an option to do a private road if the township is willing to consider that.
Don't get me wrong. I came in wanting to do public, so I'm not opposed to either one. I just kind of understood that the township would prefer to go that direction, but maybe I misunderstood.
No, I think you're right. The township would prefer public, but once we get to this large island area along the whole road, I don't know if that becomes more of a maintenance burden for the township that they don't want to take a road with that configuration.
So you said the township would rather make it public? Would rather?
I said it has been the policy of the township the last decade or so to have all public roads.
Yeah. Okay.
Which means you have to build the standard and you have to watch the maintenance aspect of it.
Yeah, I have not talked to the road crew about this option, but I will do that. I will follow up with that. And one other thing I'd like, Greg, if you could scroll down the screen a little bit, I'd like the Planning Commission to understand what changed with the lot layout. 'Cause there's 3 lots now. There's lots 3, 5, and 7, I guess, along the bottom. They're sort of configured as lane lots because they have the strips that go out to the new cul-de-sac street, which normally wouldn't be permitted in a subdivision with a road, but technically they're not lane lots because they have frontage along Butter Creek Road, even though they wouldn't be using that frontage.
Gotcha.
We've had that scenario before, but the prior plan with the longer cul-de-sac street only had basically one lot back there where 3, 5, and 7 are. And now the way he compressed it to have the shorter street, they needed to make this change. But, I don't know that it's a significant difference. I just want you to understand the other implications of shortening the road.
What's the current length of the road?
I think it's 1,560 feet. And the original road that was approved was 3,120, so it's exactly half the distance.
But it's still twice the code.
Almost, yes.
Yeah, the thing, John, with the old road, it was a loop road, and that had a little bit different standards for the length and what was permitted. So when it got changed to the cul-de-sac configuration, where the loop road worked under the ordinance, the cul-de-sac configuration doesn't work under the ordinance. That's how we got into all these discussions.
Right.
This is Alex. What's the red building on lot 7 with the long driveway coming down?
That's not a building. That's a septic system that's installed. It's already done. That was done a couple years ago.
Now, it looks like there's a driveway coming off of the cul-de-sac road down to not the 2 long red things, but the little rectangle in front.
Yeah, that's just a house that the engineer we have to show a house on the property, and he just wanted to make sure, as he did it, that house would fit in, because those red lines it's an in-ground system there. It's not a sand mound. So those red lines are the exact system, exactly that it's installed. So he just wanted to make sure it laid out right, that we had a house, we could fit a house in there.
All right, great. I also want to thank you for getting creative and thinking outside the box with a way to provide some kind of emergency access on that road. We'll just have to see how that plays out with the powers to be in the road works and the fire department.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think it'll be a nicer looking road, to be honest with you, with the divisions. I could plant the trees in the middle. It keeps the storm piping in the middle. I think all the way around, my personal opinion, all the way around, it makes a much cleaner, nicer look. And like I said, you go down some areas in the south, you see some of these developments that are all divided boulevard roads, and it really looks nice. And it just came up. I mean, I could divide it all the way up, but it didn't seem to make any sense. Since the houses are all down, 600 feet, and 500 or 600 feet is the first house. So that's also why we need the length of cul-de-sac, because it's 450 feet just to get into the property. But so all the roads or all the driveways are on that divided boulevard, and I thought it laid out better. And then also doing this layout, as I said to Steve, I think the last layout by 1,100 foot on the road, we only had 3 driveways getting onto the road. I think this layout by 1,100 feet, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 of our driveways are hitting the road by 1,100 feet. Now, I know that's an arbitrary number, but it's certainly closer to, our 800 feet that we're hoping for. So my point in saying that is it has moved we have less chance of, instead of 10 out of the 13 or 9 out of the 12 homes that are on this road being trapped in behind there, as you say, with not having emergency access going out somewhere else. Now we have a lot. We have half that. So that was the, or almost half. That's was the other reason for the relayout.
The one other thing I was just thinking of, and this is not necessarily pertinent to the emergency access issue, but you had mentioned that there would be breaks in the island every so often along the road, particularly for the fire trucks, like the tanker trucks, to be able to turn and go back out. But we're going to have to be mindful of where the driveways are also, because people will tend to not want to drive into the cul-de-sac, turn around and go back out. They'll tend to go down the wrong way until they could get to the right side of the road to save them 5 seconds of getting out of the development.
I agree with that. And if you enlarge that road, he has them on there. They're actually on there. If we enlarged, made bigger, you'll see the cross cuts or whatever you want to call them. I think there's 2 of them in front of the bulb. We left it solid. It goes back solid basically in front of the bulb and comes in about 450 feet solid, or together. And then there's a couple different ones. But as building, and I understand there's no guarantee that I'm going to build this, but I understand what you say about the placement. I think we just divided them up, or Ken just divided them up as, I think he put 2 because the vision was pretty nice. There was only a couple houses that were impacted that had to go down further. So there is plenty of area, even to the point that they don't have to go all the way around the cul-de-sac bulb, because it ties together before the bulb also, so they can go right there. So even tanker trucks, even fire trucks, everything can certainly get turned around. The bulb is big enough, obviously, at 130 feet, I think we did, or 135 feet. So that's big enough for almost any fire truck, apparently. And the tanker trucks should be, I don't know if Greg can enlarge that, or whoever's enlarging, but whether I can get it that you guys can see the cuts in the road. Well, there you go. I lied. He didn't put them on this one. He sent them over on my copy, but he didn't put them on this. But oh, wait a minute. They are.
They're a little while to develop.
I can hardly see them, but yes, right between, what is that, 1,100 and 1,200. So at about 1,150, there's a cut, and then it stops at, and then there's another one at, it looks like 850. There's a cut through. So basically, every 300 feet, there's a cut through. And you see it stops at, what's that, 15, so 1425, and from 1425 to the bulb, it's kind of open there too. Any thoughts? We got all the septics done, the perks are done. We just finished up everything's perked. We know we're the drip system, the alternate system, Steve. So lot 1, we're all good that way. That became an in-ground. That's actually perked for an in-ground system. I think half the lots are in-grounds.
And this changing the lot layout around doesn't goof up your perk locations?
That actually, we twisted everything around. Believe me, it wasn't easy. We twisted everything around to make sure they work, and they all worked. We had, if you go back to the old plan, several of the lots already had 2 septic systems, approved sites on them because of that. So by changing this to this way, it eliminated that, and it made everyone. I just had to do 2 new ones. We just got them done. One got perked today.
So there's 2 on every lot now, or just 1?
No, there's only 1 on every lot because we don't have to do 2 because we took the drip system off. So the system was just put on.
I don't think that's the way our ordinance is written. That might be for the health department that you need a backup for a drip system, but I believe our Act 537 says any new lots need a reserve and a primary septic system.
Oh, I understood it was the county and state that, or the state that required two. I didn't know it was the township. I
Yes.
understood because it was in the drip system.
Yeah, the county had their regulations, you're correct, but the township, when they updated the 537 plan, included the two systems on all new subdivision lots for any type of system.
When was that put in? Don't mind me asking.
Greg might remember the date of that. I forget.
I don't remember dates. It's been a while.
I think it was cited in one of my past letters, Tim, because it was one of the issues of it. You kept your old subdivision plan, you were grandfathered, but now that you're proposing a new layout, that issue becomes in play.
Oh, but I couldn't keep the old subdivision plan because that didn't meet zoning. So I had to change it to meet zoning.
I don't think that's the way we looked at it.
Yeah, that's what the letter said. It doesn't meet zoning.
Well, that's because you started to change we're changing some layout on that plan.
Okay.
I'm saying if you kept the old plan lock, stock, and barrel exactly the way the old plan was, I believe we would have to honor that plan. When you start making changes, then the new ordinances come into play. I mean, we could talk about that further. If I could go back and look up my information if you want to talk about that outside of this meeting here.
Okay. Yeah, I was unaware of that. I thought the reason I had to do that was because the drip irrigation was on there, and the state required if there's a drip, the state requires you to have all lots double tested. But if there's no alternate site on the system, on the thing, then that, so I didn't know, I wasn't aware that it was the township ordinance. So I'll have to, well, like I said, they're all in ground. A lot of them are in ground, so I'll have to cross that bridge next.
Yeah, I mean, the drip could be the backup. So if you got all in, a bunch of in-ground systems, you should probably qualify for a drip for a backup.
Well, certainly they will qualify for a drip. All right. Well, that's good to know. I'm glad you said something because I wasn't aware of that. So, what other thoughts do we have?
This is Chris. I really think we need to hear from some outside sources to check the viability of this layout, your road and your width, length, and center lane. I'm really not inclined to lend any opinion at this point without hearing from the outside sources.
That's fair enough. Is there any I guess what I'm looking for is major issues, major thoughts of major problems.
Well, I'm still concerned about the width. I mean, the 14 feet, with that, I mean, you do have the cutouts where they can turn, but the 14 feet just seems restrictive for emergency service. If it was a 28 feet without the center lane, and obviously a shorter cul-de-sac lane, I don't think it would be an issue. But the length of the lane and the width of the individual lanes is, it's creating the problem in my mind. I mean, there's absolutely nowhere you can pick up some type of emergency access.
Well, I guess the big issue, from what I'm understanding, is maybe it's a couple. Even if, I guess, I can't go across. Well, going across the creek is, to me, a non-starter, and
Right.
it really doesn't get to go from the end of the cul-de-sac all the way down. We're going to have to cross so much wetlands and floodplain. It's not even. It's ridiculous. I don't think it was possible.
Right.
We had talked at the last meeting, I had talked to Steve about on lot 13 around the existing barn, there's a driveway that goes from basically 1100, 10 and 1100 to out to around 450. And we had talked about using that. You know, I had talked off record with Steve about using that, and Steve brought it up at the last meeting. But the problem with that is it doesn't pick up the back 4, 5, 6 lots.
Right.
So that kind of defeats the purpose. If we go out through Camp Rockhill, or over to the other area of Camp Rockhill, honestly, if we're looking at an emergency and maybe a storm or something like that, that's a heavily wooded area with large trees. We could easily have a tree go down and block that, or several trees go down and block that just as easy as anything else. That's the other nice thing about where we're at, keeping the road up here. It's all open, it's all field. I don't see it, you know, the majority of it anyways. It's not going to overgrow. I don't know how much, you know, I guess 100 years from now, we have some, you know, 70-foot trees, 100-foot trees. But if we go through that wooded area, what do we got? Steep slopes. We got huge rocks back there.
Yeah.
I got to snake it around. And the other question is, all right, what's the width? Is 10 foot wide enough? Well, we can't do 2-lane traffic on 10. So then does it have to be 16 or 20 feet, or that's the problem? Then we're just building a whole nother road. And I guess that's where I'm not sure where we stop.
I don't know that two-way traffic would be a requirement on that. You know, you just want people to be able to get out if the other access is blocked.
Well,
or another emergency vehicle to get in case there's another problem.
Can I ask one question though? Let's say, hypothetically, let's say we did that. I could run a road all the way out to Camp Rockhill through that lot. And let's say the fire was at 1400, somewhere around one of the lots up towards 13 or 1400. Well, if the top of the road at Camp Rockhill, the main road, is closed off for some reason, those houses can't get past the fire truck or emergency vehicles anyways if they're taking up the whole road to get to that emergency lane. So I understand what you're saying, and I understand. I'm trying to understand the whole concept, but we could literally lock that off easily. And again, if we're in a storm situation where a tree blows over across that road and a house catches on fire, it's no good anyways. I mean, at least this, we stay out in the open. I have no overhead lines. The electric's going to be all underground. There's nothing right now as far as trees go. And we have, to be quite honest with you, we have just as much chance of Butter Creek or Camp Rockhill Road being, we got 70, 80, 100-foot tall trees next to there. We got just as big a chance as that being blocked as we do this road, and maybe even more. And I'm not trying to be smart, don't get me wrong. I've just, and I understand safety, and I explained it. I do understand it better. But you kind of had a perfect storm there with the bridge being out and all those poles going down. I don't necessarily have that. There's no flooding going to happen on this road. There's no poles to come down. Literally, it's emergency services. And if I can get the fire company to understand, I mean, I don't know, and I'm just putting it out there. If one lane's, if a 14-foot wide road's big enough in other places of the township, and I understand it's not ideal, I'm not disputing that. I'm just saying, if it's big enough in a lot of other areas of the township, how come in an emergency you can't act as the same here? And
I don't think that's a valid argument. I'm sorry.
I'm also trying to meet the unworded requirements of the ordinance in some senses, and it's that, you know, limit the disturbance, don't destroy the natural features, don't disturb too much, don't cut, you know, limit the cuts and fills. If I go out to Butter Creek or Camp Rockhill Road, I'm going to have to cut and fill a lot.
The contour line at 480 that from the bulb of the cul-de-sac, does that contour line go all the way out to Camp Rockhill Road?
No, No, it actually drifts down behind. It goes up a hill. Camp Rockhill Road. You're at that contour line. Are you talking the 480 contour line?
Yes, sir.
I think he'd have to scroll up, but I think that for where it hits Camp Rockhill, I think I'm in the. I got to go to the 4 or 5, or I mean the 5 or 520 line. I think up near there. I have to look.
Okay.
There's a hill you can see right on the back corner of lot. Which one is it? I can't see. The 1.84 acre, right above that where it says proposed in-ground system. The back corner of that, you can see how steep it gets behind that. So where those lines get really close together.
Mm-hmm.
And it is heavily rocked. I mean, it is large rock in there.
Any other comments from the planning commission members?
Chris, I was just going to make one other comment, and this is, again, not to make judgment on this plan, but Tim, you created this lot with your other subdivisions. So, you know, this is the lot, it wasn't a pre-existing lot. This is a lot that was the leftover from the prior Butter Creek subdivision, which you had intentions to build in the future. So if there's some limitations to it, you know, it's in part because of what property was left from the old subdivision.
No, I understand that. I fully understand that. But you also got to understand the ordinance changed since that was put forward.
Certainly did. You are correct.
You know, I didn't anticipate any of that. Now, length of cul-de-sac, in fairness, the length of cul-de-sac didn't change. So I don't know. I don't know how to. Yeah, I don't know how to answer. So you're saying it's self-inflicted?
Well, in part, but I think as Chris Thurstein mentioned, you know, we need to do a little more investigation from the township end with the fire company, with the road department, and again, this is the first time the planning commission is really looking at this option in detail. So it would be fair to give them a little more information and some time to understand it and digest it.
No, that's why and I appreciate you guys taking the time. I really do. I just don't want to keep moving forward on something and then go backwards. So, and I'd like to get this moving forward why we can. So obviously you guys don't want this to drag on for the next 14 years, and neither do I. So.
All right.
We like seeing you, Tim. We could take it for another 14 years.
What's that?
I said, we like having you come to meetings. Another 14 years would be all right.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, Steve. I enjoy the board too. I don't know what else I can do to meet the requirements.
Well, like I said, let us do that additional investigation, and you talk to the fire company, or we could all meet with the fire company together. That's fine too, and see where we go with this.
Yeah. So, this is Chris. Your original P-loop design is approved, correct? You could.
Yes, sir.
You could default to that if it came down to it.
Well, I can't. I guess the design. Yes, but I guess going back to what I said about what I thought the ordinance, you know, the heart of the ordinance was not to disturb too much stuff. I guess that's what I keep going back to. Shorter road, less maintenance, less everything for the township. And especially if this is staying public, less stormwater all the way around, it's less. And that's, you know, that's what I'm trying to do. And I know you can, anybody can be cynical and say, well, he's just trying to save money on the road. Well, yes, it saves money, but that honestly is not. This is Ken is the first engineer. You know, I had 4 or 5, 6 engineers on the last 2 plans. And this is the first engineer that actually came out and walked the property. And he said, you can't do this design. And that's really what it came down to, to be quite honest with you. But if a cul-de-sac, if I guess if we got to do a P-loop, There's just so much cut and fills, and that's the other problem, Steve. Now we're into the requirements of can't cut more than so many feet. I think what is it, 5 or 6 feet? And I had a 10-foot. We had a couple 10-foot cut and fills on that old plan, so that old road wouldn't even meet the requirements today. This is
Sir,
on,
if
I mean, it
you're
is
not
literally
able
right
to
on
meet
right.
the requirements of the township, it's not the township's fault. And that's the way it's starting to sound.
No, I'm not blaming the
That's the way
township.
it's starting to sound.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make it sound like that. That's not what I'm saying at all.
I think we acknowledge there's some, this is a difficult property and there's probably some give and take on some of the regulations. If we get the design that, at least the layout and the access that everyone's comfortable with, that might come with some, with some waivers and some design considerations. I mean, from what I've heard and, over the last couple of months that we've been talking about this, the emergency access is probably the single biggest concern. And if we got that right, that there might be, some other waiver considerations to make the design layout work. I don't want to speak for the planning commission, but that's the way I've understood it.
Yeah, I think safety is trumping the rest of the ordinances that you're concerned with. So why don't we move forward here? Let's see what your outside sources have to say. I'm hoping that you're getting the feeling that the planning commission is not comfortable with this, and I know that the supervisors are not going to be comfortable with this design. So I think we're going to have to keep chipping away at it. And if you have to lose a lot, you're going to have to lose a lot. I mean, I understand it's a challenging plot of land. For lack of a better term, it is what it is, and there's only so much we can do to stay somewhat close to ordinance requirements. So, and I mean, I'm speaking for the planning commission. I hope I didn't overspeak. I'm getting the sense that we all have the same ideals on this. And again, I do know that the supervisors are very safety prone. So I think certainly let's see what the outside sources have to say. But I think you're going to have to keep chipping away at this, to be brutally honest with you.
Well, that's why I'm here.
Right.
So, all right.
Any comments from the other planning commission members?
Yeah, this is Andy. I just want to mirror what you said about safety, Chris, and that emergencies do occur. I live off a road where, Clymer was closed down and Detweiler was blocked. So I was, locked in for some time. So we never planned that it's going to happen, but sometimes it does. So emergency access is important.
Okay.
This is Tim. I would like to just hear some more input from from the fire company and what have you, and the outside sources as well.
Okay.
This is Alex. I'll just second what Tim just said.
All righty. Well, I guess that is it. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you looking at this, and back to the drawing board.
Hopefully not too much longer.
Have a good night.
Thanks. Have a good night.
All right, moving forward. The next item on the agenda is old business. Gavin needs some signatures.
Yeah, if everyone remembers, that's the 2-lot subdivision there off of Bardsley Road and Simmons. The property actually extends all the way out to Ridge Road. There was an existing house out at Ridge Road, but the new house was there on Bardsley. Been a lot of negotiating, and they're apparently finally ready to move forward with this. So, we will need you to, I guess the way we did it the last couple of times is had a couple of you who came into the township office and signed the plan.
Right. What's timing limitation on it?
I don't know. It's taken 2 years to get to this point, so I'm not quite sure. I'll know more tomorrow night after the board meeting, but I mean, it's not like it needs to be done this week.
All right, so I could get down there next week.
Yeah, I think that next week would be fine.
All right, so somebody else wants to commit. We need 2, right?
Yeah, that would be good.
This is Andrew. I can stop by next week.
All right. So Greg, you there during normal business hours these days?
8 to 4 every day.
8 to 4.
And
You're out. And night meetings, yeah. All right, so we'll get that taken care of that way. No other old business. So moving forward, new business. We have a proposed resolution. I saw it. Either Greg or Steve, do you want to explain what this is about?
We are adding 2 more plans that have to be submitted now that you have an alternate, and one of the supervisors requested paper copies, so we added 2 more copies of plans submitted.
Does that replace electronic copies?
What?
Does that replace electronic copies?
No, they still have to do electronic copies. We're just adding 2 more paper copies as part of the submission.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think what I had mentioned to you, Chris, we're just getting 2 full-size copies and a bunch of the 11 by 17. So if you guys are comfortable still with the 11 by 17s, that's great. If somebody wants a bigger copy, we could add more full-size copies to this.
Well, I'd say in my case, I find a lot of times the paper copies, the drawings are just difficult for me to read. And having the electronic copy, like we just did in the previous presentation, we were able to blow it up and to look at things in greater detail. To me, that's more convenient than having a paper copy.
Perfect. The only thing that I was reading through this during the other application, but I was reading through this. I think we might want to add under number 3, Greg, the requirement that they do the adjoining property owner notification. Give us that documentation, because almost every application they're lacking that. I'm having the hardest time getting people to comply with that right up front. So maybe if we put it right on this list, they'll be more apt to get it right the first time.
Steve, is that the associated letters under number A?
Yeah, I just think we need to spell it out for them.
Spell it out. Yep.
Oh, actually, it's in the second one. Now that I see it, letter B. It is in the parentheses there. Traffic studies, neighbor notification letters. Maybe we just need to not change it, but just make it bold or something. Because they're obviously not reading it.
It's there.
Okay, we'll just highlight it.
Yes, I mean, are we still going to be getting electronic copies and paper copies?
You can if you want.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with John. It's nice to be able to blow them up, but I also like having a paper copy to carry around with me. And sometimes it's easier for me to look at a paper copy than a screen. So, but the 11 by 17 is fine for me.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Because we used to get 10 copies of the full-size plans, and then we ended up with rolls and rolls of extra paper that got thrown away.
Right. Do we still get one large set?
We get two full size, one for me and one for the township.
Okay. So if need be, we could look at the township copy. Gotcha. Okay. Is there any more discussion needed on this? Well, then I would look for. So what do we actually do? We're going to recommend that the supervisors.
It's on their consent agenda. So just making the planning commission aware, and if you had any comments before tomorrow night's meeting.
We don't have to vote on anything on it then?
You don't have to. No, it's already on the board's consent agenda, unless.
Yeah, I think you probably just put in the minutes that it was the consensus of the planning commission that you agreed with the language of the new ordinance.
Does anyone not agree with the language of the new ordinance?
Resolution.
I'm sorry, resolution.
I'm fine with it. This is Tim.
This is Andy. I'm okay with it.
Alex, I'm fine with it.
And John is good too.
Okay. Well, there you have it. I have no other new business. How about engineering status report?
I don't think we had anything too interesting. We did just get the revised hospital plan submitted.
All right.
So next month, I believe they will be on your agenda.
Okay.
I don't think there's anything else that you have to act on.
Nothing back from Procom or TH?
No. No, not at this point.
Okay. All right. Is there any public comment?
One quick question, Steve. Does the Westco Islander final plan approvals come off if we've got the Procom on there now?
No. And the reason I say that is that they have vested rights in that plan. Like if they scrap the Procom plan and wanted to build the Wesco plan, they
It's
have the
still
right
valid.
to do that.
Okay.
What we'll end up doing is when the board approves the Procom plan, we'll ask them to formally withdraw the prior plan, and then that'll go away for good.
Alrighty.
Good question. So, Greg, did you get any emails with public comment?
No emails with public comment.
Nobody listens to us.
Yes, we
I'm hanging
do.
on your
We
every word,
listen.
even if I
We
can't get off
listen.
mute.
There you go. All right. Does anyone have anything to say before we go? If not, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
This is Andy. Motion to adjourn.
This is
John,
Tim.
I'll
I'll second it.
I'm going to give that to John. I heard him first. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Good
Have a
night.
good
See
evening,
y'all next
everyone.
month.
Good night.
See you later.
Have a good night.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks, Steve.